He saw the alien girl touch a wall, and it opened for her. From the observation deck of the human survey ship Odyssey, he stared at the immense formation floating silently in the blackness of space. It was enormous, tens of kilometers long, but perfectly smooth. No seams, no docking bays, no lights, no signs that anyone had been there for centuries. The walls reflected the faint starlight like glass, and yet they were solid, unyielding, and utterly mysterious. The Odyssey had been sent to survey unclaimed regions of the galaxy. Humanity had been exploring space more aggressively in recent decades, driven by curiosity and the need for new resources. Other species were watching too, but most avoided the outer edges of known space. This structure, however, had drawn attention from everyone. The readings were impossible. Energy fields fluctuated within the walls, but no one could explain them. Evan, an expedition specialist with a reputation for keeping a cool head, felt the weight of the moment as he prepared to step inside. The airlock hissed open, and the survey team floated out in their lightweight space suits. Alongside them was Sally, a young alien girl whose people had recently allied with humans. She was small, no taller than 12 human years, with shimmering blue skin that changed subtly with her mood. Her eyes were large, dark, and expressive, reflecting the stars as though she carried the night sky in them. The other members of the team whispered among themselves, wondering why a child, or at least a child by her species standards, was allowed to join such a dangerous mission. Evan had his doubts too, but he had seen Sally act in ways that were remarkable. Even the most sophisticated sensors sometimes failed to predict her actions. There was something about her, a quiet confidence, a calm that seemed to understand things humans and machines couldn't. He reminded himself to stay alert. Curiosity in space often led to trouble. The team approached the outer wall of the megastructure. It was smooth and seamless, a perfect sheet of unknown alloy that reflected nothing but starlight. Lieutenant Harper, the mission leader, ran his hand along the surface. The scanner beeped faintly. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. No control panels, no doors, nothing that can be opened. He frowned. We're looking at a dead building. Evan squinted, noticing Sally standing a few meters away. She was staring at the wall with a calm intensity that made him uneasy. She's just looking, he thought. Maybe she's bored. But then something happened that none of the humans could have predicted. Sally raised her hand and gently pressed it against the wall. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a faint line of light appeared under her fingers. The line widened, branching like roots, until the wall shifted apart silently, revealing a corridor bathed in a soft, golden glow. The team froze. Evan's breath caught in his throat. Lieutenant Harper stepped forward cautiously, hand on his blaster, eyes wide. How did she do that?" he whispered. Sally turned her head slowly, her expression calm, almost amused. "It's not me," she said softly in perfect basic. "It's the wall, it listens. It waits for certain minds." Evan stepped closer, curiosity overcoming caution. "Certain minds? You mean your species?" Sally shook her head. "Not only mine, it listens to intention, to understanding, to adaptation." The humans exchanged uneasy glances. This was beyond anything they had encountered. Most alien technology they knew was built for control, buttons, keys, codes. This structure had no interfaces, yet it had opened for her as if it had been expecting her all along. "Let's proceed carefully," Harper said, though his voice lacked conviction. "Keep your sensors on. Don't touch anything you don't understand." As they moved inside, the walls of the corridor seemed almost alive. Lights shifted as they walked, adjusting to their presence. Evan's scanner picked up faint energy patterns, but they made no sense. They weren't circuits, not in any way humans had ever seen. The corridor curved gently, stretching endlessly. Evan realized with a thrill and a shiver that the structure itself seemed to be observing them, learning their movements. Sally walked ahead, hands clasped behind her back. humming softly in a language that resonated with the walls. Evan noticed that every curve and turn she approached caused subtle changes, a panel sliding smoothly, a section of wall bending to form a passage, even the light adjusting to her presence. She wasn't forcing the structure to react. It was as though it recognized her. "Is it alive?" whispered one of the junior surveyors. His voice trembled with fear and excitement. Saley glanced back at him, her large eyes calm. "Not alive like you think, but aware. It waits for the right minds." Evan pondered her words as they continued deeper. The corridor opened into a large chamber, circular and massive, stretching hundreds of meters in diameter. The walls shimmered with intricate patterns, faintly glowing with colors the human eye couldn't fully perceive. The ceiling was impossibly high, vanishing into shadows. And then they saw it. At the center of the chamber stood a pedestal, or at least what appeared to be one. It emitted a soft hum, like the vibrations of a million voices singing together. Evan approached cautiously, scanning it. No energy signature that made sense. No power source. Yet the pedestal seemed to respond to him, faintly pulsing in time with his heartbeat. Saley stepped forward, placing a hand gently on the pedestal. The chamber responded instantly. Lights danced across the walls, forming patterns that seemed like writing, but it wasn't any language Evan recognized. The patterns shifted, weaving and flowing like a river of light. And then impossibly they began to show images, distant stars, strange planets, ships, and alien cities long gone. "It's a memory," Evan breathed, off filling his voice. "It's recording the galaxy," Saley nodded. "Not just recording, sharing, it shares what it trusts. And it trusts us." The humans were silent, overwhelmed. For centuries, humanity had explored space, searching for knowledge, for understanding. Here it was, offered freely by a civilization that had vanished long ago. And yet, it had not offered itself to just anyone. It had waited for minds capable of comprehension, minds that could adapt and think beyond immediate needs. Evan felt a thrill unlike anything he had ever known. For the first time, he realized the depth of human potential. Humanity was young in the galaxy, chaotic and unpredictable, but perhaps that was why the structure had responded to them. They were not yet rigid, not yet bound by convention. "Can we access it?" one of the scientists asked, almost in a whisper. Saley shook her head. "Not yet. We must understand the way it thinks. It will not share everything at once. That is its choice." The team spent hours exploring, though it felt like minutes. Every corridor, every chamber seemed to react subtly to Saley's presence. Evan noticed small details that others missed. A wall that bent slightly when she passed, a light that adjusted to her focus, a hum that rose and fell with her breathing. It was not magic. It was interaction. The structure was alive in a way that was entirely alien, and humans had only just begun to learn its rules. As they prepared to leave the chamber, Evan turned back, watching Saley carefully. She had not said much, but her presence was undeniably powerful. He wondered what other secrets the station held, secrets it might only reveal to those who could truly understand. The expedition returned to the Odyssey, minds buzzing with wonder and questions. For the first time, Evan felt that humanity was not insignificant in the galaxy. They were young, yes, and untested, but full of potential. If they could learn to think differently, to adapt, to understand rather than conquer, they might achieve greatness in ways other species could not. And then he remembered the wall, the first wall she had touched. The one that had opened so effortlessly for her. It was more than a door, it was a message. Evan looked at Saley, who was quietly observing the stars from the observation deck. "Do you know what this place really is?" he asked softly. She smiled faintly. "It's not mine to tell. It will show what it chooses, but you humans may be exactly what it hoped to find." Evan leaned back, awe and anticipation mixing in his chest. The journey had only begun. And somewhere deep inside, He knew that what they had discovered would change humanity's place in the galaxy forever. The Odyssey drifted silently in orbit around the massive alien structure, its hull reflecting faint light from the dead star. Inside the ship, the atmosphere was tense yet filled with wonder. Evan Rourke could hardly sit still. He kept thinking about the walls that opened for Sally, the golden corridors that seemed to respond to her, and the chamber filled with glowing patterns and alien memories. Humanity had seen strange things before, but nothing like this. Sally floated near the observation window, her eyes reflecting the blackness of space. She had not spoken much since they left the chamber, but Evan noticed that her focus never wavered. She was listening, watching, always aware. He wondered what she understood that the humans did not. Lieutenant Harper paced the bridge. "We need to figure out what we just experienced. Our sensors can't explain it. The structure is intelligent in some way." "Not intelligent like a brain," Evan said, leaning against the console. "It's aware, it reacts, it knows when someone is ready, that's what I think." Harper frowned. "Ready for what?" "That's the question," Evan admitted. "We don't know what it wants, but it's clearly selective. It didn't open for us, only for Sally." A soft chime announced the arrival of Dr. Meary, the team's linguist and xenopsychologist. "I've been studying the recordings from the chamber," she said, excitement in her voice. "There's a pattern in the visuals. It's not a language like we know, but it's a communication method. The structure seems to respond to cognitive patterns, thinking, problem-solving, intention. It reacts to certain kinds of understanding." Evan nodded. "So it's testing us, or at least testing me." "Not just you," Meary said quickly. "The structure has been observing Sally too, and her species, they're like key observers. They don't interfere, but they understand patterns. I think the builders designed the station to respond to both her kind and humans in different ways." Sally tilted her head slightly, as if listening to Meary's words from another dimension. "It does not respond to force," she said softly. "It responds to thought, to adaptability. Humans are unpredictable. That is why it watches you." Evan could feel a shiver run down his spine. "Unpredictable, that's what it wants from us." "Yes," Sally said simply. "It wants minds that are not fixed, minds that can change, minds that can learn from what they see." The team spent the next several hours planning their next move. They would need to re-enter the structure, but this time with careful observation. Every step needed to be cautious, every touch measured. The walls themselves seemed to hum with a quiet energy, waiting for someone to make the right move. When they prepared to leave the Odyssey again, Evan felt a strange mix of fear and excitement. The first exploration had shown them possibilities beyond human comprehension. The second journey promised answers, but also danger. As they entered the corridor, Sally led the way without hesitation. Her small hand brushed along the smooth walls, and they opened quietly, revealing new passageways they had not seen before. Evan followed closely, feeling a strange sense of awe. The structure seemed alive, and he realized that they were visitors in a mind far greater than their own. The new passageways twisted and turned, forming a labyrinth that was difficult to map. Every curve and corner seemed to shift subtly when Sally passed, almost as if the walls themselves were learning the paths she took. Evan's scanner struggled to keep up, recording energy patterns that changed faster than any human device could interpret. At one point, the corridor opened into a chamber filled with floating holographic images. Stars, planets, and ships appeared in intricate sequences, as though the builders were showing the team the galaxy as it had once been, and as it might be. Evan watched in silence, trying to absorb the magnitude of it all. Sally approached the center of the chamber and touched a glowing sphere that hovered midair. The sphere expanded into a larger hologram, showing a network of alien civilizations, some flourishing, others long gone. The images shifted quickly, revealing wars, alliances, and discoveries. "This is incredible," whispered Meary. "We are seeing history the galaxy lost." Sally's eyes were steady, but there was a trace of sadness in her expression. The builders predicted stagnation, she said softly. They saw species grow powerful but inflexible. They vanished, leaving these records for those who could learn without destruction. Evan frowned. Why us? Why humanity? Sally's gaze met his. Because you are not yet fixed. You are young. You can adapt, think differently, and create new solutions. That is why the station recognizes you. Evan felt a rush of pride and humility at the same time. Humans were young and chaotic, prone to mistakes, but that unpredictability had value in the eyes of beings far older and wiser than themselves. He realized that the galaxy had underestimated humanity, not yet seeing what they were capable of. The chamber shifted again, the holograms dissolving into a flowing pattern of light. Evan reached out instinctively, but the walls responded only to Sally. She traced a line in the air, and the structure reacted, revealing hidden compartments filled with ancient artifacts. Small devices hovered, emitting soft pulses of energy. Some seemed like tools, others like records. None were weaponized. "These are gifts," asked Harper cautiously. "Not gifts," Sally said. "Opportunities to learn, to understand, to adapt." The team approached the artifacts carefully. Dr. Miri studied one device that projected a miniature star system in midair. "This is advanced," she whispered. "The builders could manipulate matter, energy, and information in ways we cannot imagine." Evan felt a thrill of curiosity. Could humanity use this? Could we learn to create like them? Sally looked at him thoughtfully. "Not by copying, by understanding, by thinking in ways they could not. That is why they wait for you." Hours passed as the team explored the chamber, each discovery more astonishing than the last. The walls hummed faintly, responding to Sally's presence, revealing new paths and expanding chambers as if the structure itself wanted them to learn. Evan began to realize the scale of what they had found. This was not just a building, it was a living archive, a test, and a teacher all in one. As they prepared to leave the chamber, Sally paused. She placed her hand lightly on a smooth wall and it shifted again, revealing a narrow passageway that led deeper into the structure. Evan hesitated. "How far do we go?" Sally smiled faintly. "As far as the station allows. It will guide us if we are ready." The passageway opened into a smaller chamber, unlike the others. The walls were darker, but the light seemed to come from within. Strange symbols shifted constantly across the surfaces, forming patterns that were almost hypnotic. Evan felt a tug at his mind, a subtle pressure to think, to solve, to understand. "This is different," whispered Miri. "It's like the structure is asking us to think in ways we cannot yet comprehend." Evan realized she was right. The symbols were not just information. They were challenges, puzzles, each one requiring focus, creativity, and adaptability. The team worked together, using logic, intuition, and cooperation to interpret the patterns. Sally guided them subtly, offering hints without giving answers. Hours turned into a day as the team solved one puzzle after another. Each solution revealed more about the builders, their knowledge, and their philosophy. Evan marveled at the depth of understanding encoded in the walls. This civilization had mastered the art of teaching, not through words or force, but through interaction, observation, and trust. At one point, Evan paused and looked around. "Do you realize what we're doing?" he asked softly. "We're learning from beings that vanished thousands, maybe millions of years ago, and they chose us, humans, to continue their work." Sally nodded. "You are young, adaptable, and unpredictable. That is what they needed. Not strength, not conquest, but understanding." The realization filled Evan with pride but also a deep sense of responsibility. Humanity had been given a gift, but with it came a challenge. They could learn, yes, but they must also prove themselves worthy. Misuse of this knowledge could be catastrophic, yet proper use could elevate them beyond anything they had imagined. As the team prepared to return to the Odyssey, Evan took one last look at the chamber. The walls shimmered faintly, as if acknowledging their efforts. Saley touched the wall gently, and it shifted to reveal the passage back. The journey had been exhausting but exhilarating. They had glimpsed the mind of a civilization far beyond their own, and the experience had changed them all. Back on the ship, Evan watched Saley quietly from across the room. She had been calm throughout, guiding them without force, teaching them without words, and opening doors they could not have imagined. He realized that her species' gift was not just intuition. It was understanding the value of patience, observation, and cooperation. For the first time, Evan felt that humanity was not just exploring space. They were becoming part of a larger story, one that stretched across the stars and connected civilizations past, present, and future. And somewhere deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning. The Builders' legacy was vast, and humans were only just learning to step into their place. As night fell over the Odyssey, Evan closed his eyes and thought about the walls, the chambers, and the puzzles they had solved. He understood now that this structure was not just a building. It was a teacher, a guide, and a challenge. And humanity, unpredictable and young, had been chosen to meet that challenge. The galaxy outside seemed endless, full of mysteries and possibilities. And Evan smiled, knowing that the story of humans among the stars had only just begun. The Odyssey continued to hover silently above the alien structure, but inside the ship, excitement and tension intertwined like the strands of an invisible web. Evan Rourke could hardly sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the glowing corridors, the shifting walls, and the holographic chambers that seemed alive with knowledge. Humanity had uncovered something extraordinary, something that could change the course of their future. The next day, the team prepared to enter the structure again. This time, they were determined to go deeper, to understand more, to see what secrets lay hidden beyond the corridors Saley had already revealed. The alien girl seemed calm as always, her eyes reflecting a quiet confidence that unsettled and inspired the humans at the same time. Evan floated beside her as they moved through the first corridor. The walls shifted smoothly as Saley's hands brushed them, opening new pathways that no human mind could have predicted. Every step they took seemed to trigger subtle changes, revealing more of the structure's mind and its vast intelligence. "It's responding to her," whispered Lieutenant Harper. "It knows she's guiding us, but why?" Saley glanced back at them. "It recognizes potential, not just her potential but yours as well. The Builders designed this place to respond to understanding, to insight, and to adaptability. You are part of that pattern now." Evan felt a thrill. Humanity was not merely exploring the galaxy. They were being observed, tested, and perhaps even guided by a civilization far older and wiser than any they had known. The thought made his pulse quicken. As they moved deeper, the corridors began to change. The walls shifted from smooth metallic surfaces to crystalline textures that shimmered like liquid light. Evan reached out instinctively, and a faint pulse of energy ran through his fingers, but the wall did not open. Only Saley could trigger the responses. "This place has rules," Evan muttered to himself. "We don't understand them yet, but they exist." The corridor opened into a massive chamber, larger than any they had seen before. The walls were alive with patterns of glowing light, constantly shifting, forming symbols and images that defied easy comprehension. In the center of the chamber hovered a massive holographic globe, showing stars, planets, and galaxies in intricate detail. Some of the images were familiar, others entirely alien. "This is incredible," Dr. Meary said, her voice trembling with excitement. "It's a map of the galaxy and perhaps more. The Builders left a record of everything they saw, everything they understood." Saley approached the globe, her fingers hovering just above its surface. The patterns shifted again, and new images appeared. Evan watched in awe as the holograms revealed civilizations that had long vanished, planets destroyed by natural disasters, and species that had never been seen by humans. They predicted stagnation, Saley said softly. They watched as civilizations grew powerful but rigid. They left this place for those who could adapt, those who could think differently, and those who could learn without destroying. Evan frowned. But why humanity? Why us? Saley's large eyes met his. Because you are not yet rigid. You are young, unpredictable, and capable of change. That is what the station values. That is why it recognizes you. Evan felt a mixture of pride and responsibility. Humanity was young in the galaxy, often chaotic and reckless, but in the eyes of this structure, that unpredictability was a strength. They had the potential to rise above, to understand, and to shape the future in ways no other species could. The chamber shifted again, revealing a smaller section filled with ancient artifacts. Each artifact hovered in midair, pulsing with soft energy. Some seemed like tools, others like records of knowledge. None were weaponized. All were designed to teach, to reveal, and to expand understanding. Evan picked up one of the devices. It projected a miniature star system, complete with planets, moons, and orbiting satellites. As he rotated it, he saw structures on the planets, cities, and even glimpses of the civilizations that had once lived there. "This is beyond anything we could imagine," whispered Harper. "We're seeing history, technology, and knowledge that no human has ever known." Saley placed a hand on another device, and it expanded into a large holographic map of the galaxy. Lines connected stars and civilizations, showing trade routes, alliances, and conflicts. Evan realized that the builders had recorded everything, not to control, but to teach. "They wanted knowledge to survive," Saley said softly. "Not control, not conquest, only understanding. That is why they waited for minds capable of learning, not destroying." Hours passed as the team explored the chamber. Every artifact revealed more. Every hologram taught lessons of cooperation, problem-solving, and adaptability. Evan marveled at the depth of understanding encoded in the structures. The builders had mastered the art of teaching through interaction, observation, and trust, rather than direct instruction. At one point, Evan paused, looking at a hologram that showed humans traveling through space. The image was faint but clear enough to show that humanity had the potential to reach far beyond their current understanding. The realization filled him with hope and a profound sense of responsibility. "This is why we are here," he whispered. "To learn, to grow, to become more than we are now," Saley nodded. "Yes, but learning is not enough. You must also understand. Understanding leads to action. Action leads to change, and change shapes the future." The team continued deeper into the structure, following Saley through passages that seemed to defy logic. Some corridors bent impossibly, twisting in ways that made mapping them nearly impossible. Others opened into vast chambers filled with floating lights, symbols, and patterns that responded to Saley's presence. Evan felt a growing sense of awe. The structure was not just a building, it was a living archive, a test, and a teacher all in one. And humanity, with Saley's guidance, was beginning to understand its lessons. They entered a chamber filled with floating spheres of light. Each sphere contained images, sounds, and patterns that seemed to represent knowledge, culture, and history. Evan reached out and the nearest sphere responded, projecting a three-dimensional map of a distant galaxy. He watched as stars, planets, and civilizations appeared, revealing connections and patterns that humans had never noticed. "This is incredible," said Dr. Meary. "We are seeing the universe in a way no human has ever seen it, and it's showing us patterns, lessons, and possibilities." Saley touched another sphere, and it expanded to reveal a network of civilizations across the galaxy. Lines connected stars, showing trade, communication, and influence. Evan realized that the builders had left a guide for anyone capable of understanding it, an education for the galaxy, waiting for the right minds to arrive. "They trusted us," Harper said quietly. "Not just her, but humanity. They left this for us to learn, to adapt, to grow." Evan felt a mixture of pride and awe. Humans were young and often reckless, but in the eyes of this structure, that unpredictability was a strength. They had the potential to rise above, to understand, and to shape the galaxy in ways no other species could. As they explored further, the structure began to reveal more complex patterns. The walls themselves seemed to shift, creating new passages, chambers, and interactive spaces. Evan realized that every action they took, every choice they made, influenced the structure. It was alive, aware, and responsive. Saley moved through the passages with confidence, guiding the humans without words. Her presence was a key, unlocking doors, chambers, and knowledge that humans could not access alone. Evan watched her, realizing that her species' gift was not just intuition. It was understanding, patience, and observation. Hours turned into a day as they continued their exploration. Every chamber revealed more knowledge, more history, and more possibilities. Evan felt as though they were becoming part of a larger story, one that stretched across the stars and connected civilizations past, present, and future. At one point, they entered a chamber filled with glowing patterns on the walls. The patterns shifted constantly, forming puzzles, challenges, and lessons. Evan realized that the builders had created a series of tests, not to trap or punish, but to teach, to expand understanding, and to prepare those who were ready. The team worked together, using logic, intuition, and cooperation to interpret the patterns. Saley guided them subtly, offering hints without giving answers. Each puzzle solved revealed new knowledge, new possibilities, and new paths to explore. Evan felt a growing sense of responsibility. Humanity had been given a gift, a chance to learn from a civilization far beyond their own, but with that gift came a challenge. They had to prove themselves worthy, to use the knowledge wisely, and to adapt without falling into the same mistakes the builders had observed in other species. As they prepared to leave the chamber, Saley paused. She placed her hand gently on a wall, and it shifted to reveal a passage back to the surface. Evan followed, feeling a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. They had seen more than most humans could imagine, and yet they were only beginning to understand. Back on the Odyssey, Evan watched Saley quietly from across the room. She had been calm throughout, guiding them without force, teaching them without words, and opening doors they could not have imagined. He realized that her species' gift was not just intuition. It was understanding the value of patience, observation, and cooperation. For the first time, Evan felt that humanity was not just exploring space. They were becoming part of a larger story, one that stretched across the stars and connected civilizations past, present, and future. And somewhere deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy outside seemed endless, full of mysteries and possibilities. And Evan smiled, knowing that the story of humans among the stars had only just begun. The Odyssey floated quietly above the alien structure as the crew prepared for their final exploration. Evan Rourke felt a mixture of anticipation and unease. They had uncovered astonishing knowledge, navigated shifting corridors, and witnessed a civilization that had vanished long ago. Yet, he knew the structure had more to reveal. It had been testing them, guiding them, teaching them, and now it seemed ready to show its ultimate secret. Saley led the way, moving through the familiar corridors as if she were part of the structure itself. The walls shifted smoothly to accommodate her presence, opening new paths, revealing chambers that no human had seen before. Every step felt purposeful, deliberate, as if the structure itself had chosen this moment to reveal its final lesson. The team followed in silence, each member aware of the gravity of what lay ahead. Evan's mind raced with possibilities. The builders had left knowledge, puzzles, and tests, but what was the ultimate purpose? Why had humanity, so young and unpredictable, been selected to witness this. The corridor opened into a vast chamber, larger than any they had encountered. Light streamed from walls that seemed to hum with energy, forming a lattice of glowing lines that extended into the distance. At the center of the chamber stood a massive crystalline pedestal, similar to the one they had seen before but far larger, pulsing with a rhythm that seemed almost alive. Saley stepped forward and touched the pedestal. The light surged, filling the chamber with a brilliance that made Evan shield his eyes. When he looked again, the pedestal projected a three-dimensional map of the galaxy, but this time it was more than a map. It was a story. Stars, planets, civilizations, and events unfolded in intricate detail, showing connections that no human could have imagined. Evan felt a sense of awe unlike anything he had ever experienced. The builders had left not only knowledge but a vision of the galaxy as a living, interconnected system. They had recorded history, observed patterns, and predicted outcomes, leaving this for those capable of understanding. "They trusted us," Harper whispered. "Not just her, but humanity. They left this for us to learn, to adapt, to grow." Saley's eyes reflected the glowing map. The builders predicted stagnation. They saw civilizations grow rigid, powerful, but unchanging. They vanished, leaving their knowledge for those who could use it wisely. They needed observers and thinkers, not conquerors. Evan realized the truth of her words. Humanity had been underestimated in the galaxy, not because they lacked strength or intelligence, but because their potential was hidden in unpredictability, adaptability, and creativity. The builders had seen that potential and had chosen to invest in it. The holographic map shifted again, highlighting certain star systems. Lines connected civilizations in patterns of trade, communication, and cooperation. Others were marked with warnings, civilizations that had collapsed due to conflict or stagnation. Evan understood that the builders were teaching not just history but lessons in survival, adaptation, and growth. "They are showing us what we could become," Miri said softly. "If we learn, adapt, and cooperate, we might achieve what no other species has." Saley's gaze met Evan's. "But you must also understand the responsibility. Knowledge without wisdom can be dangerous. The builders left these gifts for those who can act with understanding, not greed." Evan nodded, feeling the weight of her words. Humanity had been given a chance, a rare opportunity to rise above its limitations. Misuse of this knowledge could be catastrophic, yet proper use could elevate them beyond anything they had imagined. As they explored the chamber, the structure began to respond in more complex ways. Walls shifted, revealing smaller rooms filled with artifacts, holographic devices, and interactive displays. Each chamber tested their understanding, challenged their assumptions, and encouraged cooperation. Evan realized that the builders had created a system not only to teach knowledge, but to cultivate the qualities necessary for its responsible use. Hours passed as the team engaged with the structure. Every puzzle solved, every artifact studied, every pattern understood strengthened their comprehension. Evan felt a growing sense of pride. Humanity had been chosen not because of dominance or conquest, but because they could learn, adapt, and grow. That unpredictability, once seen as weakness, was now their greatest strength. At one point, Saley paused at a holographic display showing Earth. The image highlighted humanity's history, culture, and achievements. Evan saw the potential reflected in the map, the chance to extend understanding, cooperation, and wisdom across the stars. "This is what we were meant for," Evan whispered. "Not just survival, but contribution." "Growth, understanding," Saley nodded. "The builders left this for you, but now the choice is yours. How will humanity use it?" The chamber shifted again, and a new projection appeared, a network of dormant structures scattered across the galaxy. The builders had created these as repositories of knowledge, waiting for minds capable of understanding and adapting. The station had chosen humanity as stewards, guiding them toward these other locations. Evan felt a surge of determination. Humanity had been given a rare chance to shape the future, to connect civilizations, and to preserve knowledge in ways no other species could. The responsibility was immense, but so was the opportunity. Harper looked around, awe and excitement in his eyes. We could connect the galaxy not through war but through understanding. We could be the bridge between civilizations. Miri added, we could learn from the past, avoid the mistakes others made and build something new, a future based on cooperation, creativity, and wisdom. Evan realized that the builders had not left instructions for dominance or control. They had left a system designed to teach, to guide, and to challenge. And in doing so, they had chosen humanity, not for strength, not for conquest, but for potential. The structure seemed to acknowledge their understanding. The walls pulsed softly, lights shifting in patterns of approval, and the central pedestal glowed brighter than ever. Evan felt a sense of connection, a realization that humanity was no longer alone in the galaxy. They were part of a larger story, one that stretched across time, space, and civilizations. Saley moved to the pedestal, her fingers tracing intricate patterns. The projection shifted to show a series of challenges, puzzles, scenarios, and lessons designed to test understanding, cooperation, and adaptability. Evan realized that the builder's legacy was not static. It was living, evolving, and waiting for those capable of learning from it. This is not the end, Saley said softly. It is only the beginning. The galaxy will watch you. You will face challenges. But if you remember what you have learned, if you act with understanding, you can shape the future. Evan felt a surge of hope and determination. Humanity had been underestimated, but they had been chosen for a reason. They had the chance to rise above their limitations, to connect civilizations, and to preserve knowledge for the future. The team spent hours interacting with the pedestal, learning from the projections, and discussing the lessons embedded in the structure. Every discovery reinforced the idea that knowledge was not enough. Understanding and action were essential. Evan realized that the builders had designed a test, not of strength, but of wisdom, empathy, and creativity. As they prepared to leave the chamber, the structure shifted to reveal a passage leading back to the surface. Evan followed Saley, feeling a sense of completion mixed with anticipation. They had uncovered knowledge beyond imagination, glimpsed history and possibilities, and realized humanity's potential. Yet, the journey was only beginning. Back on the Odyssey, Evan watched Saley quietly. She had guided them, taught them without words, and unlocked doors humans could not access alone. Her presence had been the key to understanding the structure, and Evan realized that her species' gift was not just intuition. It was patience, observation, and cooperation. For the first time, Evan felt that humanity was ready, not just to explore space, but to understand it, to connect civilizations, and to shape the future. The galaxy outside seemed endless, full of mysteries and possibilities. Humanity had been given a chance to rise, and the builders had entrusted them with a legacy that spanned time, knowledge, and understanding. Evan closed his eyes and thought of the walls that had opened, the chambers they had explored, and the lessons they had learned. The structure was not just a building, it was a teacher, a guide, and a challenge. Humanity had passed the first tests, but many more awaited. The future depended not only on what they knew, but on how they acted. He opened his eyes and looked at his team. They were exhausted, but their faces shone with understanding, curiosity, and determination. Evan smiled. Humanity had been chosen, not for what they were, but for what they could become. And with that, a new chapter in human history had begun, a chapter of growth, understanding, and connection across the stars. The stars outside seemed brighter now, filled with promise. And Evan knew, deep in his heart, that the story of humans among the stars was only beginning, and that they would never be the same again. He saw the alien girl touch a wall, and it opened for her.